Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I hope that your hump day this week is off to a good start. I hope that you've already got yourself a good cup of coffee. I've got mine here in my favorite Yahweh mug. I'll show that to you. The inscription there is the term Yahweh in Hebrew. And Yahweh is it's like the personal name for God. Anyway, it's great to be with you on a great Wednesday morning, and I'm going to be reflecting for just a couple of minutes on Psalm 19. Psalm 19 was considered by C.S. Lewis to be the greatest poetry in the Psalter, and one of the greatest poems or lyrics ever written. That's pretty high praise. Psalm 19, which C.S. Lewis considered the greatest poetry in the whole Psalter. I'm going to take just a couple of minutes and read this for us. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it. And there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey and the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is thy servant warmed, and in keeping of them there is great reward. Who can understand his errors? Cleanse thou me from secret faults. Keep back thy servant also from presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me, then shall I be upright, and I shall be innocent from the great transgression. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. And the Psalm 19, which C.S. Lewis considered the greatest poetry in the whole Psalter. Yesterday afternoon, I don't know if you were paying attention to it, a NASA space probe touched down on Bennu, which is an asteroid about 200 million miles away. And the goal of this was to collect maybe a pound or two of dirt and dust from this asteroid and bring it back to Earth. So this spacecraft touched down briefly, sort of a grab and go, grabbing some asteroid dirt, and then is going to come back here, make it be back to Earth, I think sometime in 2023. 200 million miles away. When I was in college in Chapel Hill, yes, I do bleed Carolina blue, in the planetarium there, in Moorhead Planetarium, they had this inscription on the wall. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. In short, the cosmos, the stars, the planets, the nebula, all that's out there that we can see in the night sky, that we can study with a telescope, they all declare their Maker's praise. So, we can step outside and look at the sky on a dark night and see. I think if you're in most areas with a fairly dark sky, I think you can see 3,000 stars. If you're really high in the mountains, the air is thinner, you can see a few more. And then you know that there are billions and billions of stars beyond that. And all of these stars together sing their Maker's praise. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. And so, we can study them with a telescope, and we can learn everything in the world about them. We can know what the fuel is for this particular star and how hot it burns by the size of it and by what color it is and radiation coming from it and all that sort of stuff. And we can figure out how fast it's moving away from us. That's all true scientifically. But all those things that we see in the night sky around us declare their Maker's praise. They are witnesses to God. Think about if you go to Italy, go to Florence in Italy. There's this incredible 17-foot tall sculpture of the biblical hero David, sculpted by Michelangelo, unveiled in 1504. This incredible sculpture. And this sculpture, it is just a piece of marble. It's marble. But that piece of marble declares Michelangelo's praise. When you look at this piece of marble, which he sculpted into the beautiful form of the hero David, that speaks of Michelangelo's greatness as an artist in the same way that the heavens declare the glory of God. Paul talks about this in Romans chapter 1, that God's glory is displayed all around us. The creation declares God's glory. So think about what your happy place is. What's your happy place? Like for me, it'd be Cape Point, up at Buxton, in Cape Hatteras, and to be there as the sun is setting. You see, from that point you can look east, but also look west, and you see the sun setting to your west over the water, and the sky growing dark over the water to the east, and the stars emerging as the surf is pounding. Then once it gets really dark, if you look up, you can see a reasonably clear sky. You can see the Milky Way. It's a magical place. It is a magical place. And things like that declare the glory of God. So think about your happy place, whatever that is. Whatever that is, where you can look around and the heavens are declaring the glory of God for you. But what we can see of God and what we can know of God is a way of knowing Him. What we see of God in the heavens around us is a way of knowing Him. In part, we can know God simply through looking at the heavens. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth His handiwork. And the neat thing about this psalm is that it doesn't end there. Midway through, the psalmist, presumably David, switches so that it's not the heavens declare the glory of God. Midway through, for the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul, and the testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. So David switches from the heavens declaring the glory of God to the law declaring the glory of God. So the law is the way that they know God. Now we Christians have and we have a pretty distorted way of looking at the law, and we've had it for a good while. Too many times when we Christians think of the law for the ancient Hebrews, what comes to mind is something like this list of commands, and they've got to check the boxes and all these commands in order to be saved. So God says, okay, here's your list, here's your to-do list, here's your list of commands, thou shalt and thou shalt nots, and you better check every box, and if you don't check every box, you're in trouble. That's sort of how we look at it. And that's a really twisted, warped view of the law. The law wasn't sort of onerous burden that God had put on the ancient Hebrews way back then. The law for them was something they cherished. They revered the law, and it was far more than simply a list of commands. For them, the law was how they knew God. The law, in these first 5 books of Moses, or at least traditionally ascribed to Moses, that's where the covenants were. That's their origin as a people. That's where the covenants are. That's where they get their distinctiveness. That's what makes them distinct from everybody else, all the other cultures around them. They are the precepts. God's precepts are how to live a good life. And this, for them, is something they cherished. It identified them. And they knew in the law that they belonged to God. And they knew from the law who God was. They cherished and loved the law. And here in the psalm, just like the night sky displays God's glory and His greatness, how much more does the law do it? So David goes from describing the night sky and how the sun makes its course across the heaven during the day. And if all of that displays the glory of God and tells us about God, it's like, how much more does the law do that? How much more does the law do that? The Torah, the Hebrew term for the law, is how they knew God. It's where their covenants were. It's where the regulations were, which separated them, which made them distinct from all the other peoples. It's how they knew God. It's where the precepts were for how God would have them live a good life. All of that is the law, and they loved it and they cherished it. And that's how they know God. So if creation, the heavens declare the glory of God, and if we can know God through creation, how much more do we know God through the law and by extension, Holy Scripture itself? There's theologically, to get all theological here early on Wednesday morning, what we're running into is what's known as general revelation and special revelation. General revelation is what we can see of God through nature, through just nature around us. And that is the way to know God. We can know God through the creation around us. We can know something of God looking at the night sky or the oceans or the mountains or whatever, or a desert, forest. We can know something of God looking at creation around us. It's there for anybody to see. And Paul talks eloquently about that in Romans chapter 1. But then there's special revelation, which is God revealed through Scripture and ultimately through Christ. And in this psalm we have both. We have general revelation, the heavens declare the glory of God. And general revelation, the heavens declare the glory of God, and special revelation. For the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul, and the testimony of the Lord is pure, making wise the simple. So for us, cherish, fear, and love God. Cherish, fear, and love God. Sometimes just allow yourself to be humbled and awestruck by creation itself. Allow yourself to be humbled and awestruck even more by what we know of God and Scripture itself. And now I will close with the final verse from the song which countless Sunday school teachers and preachers have used at the end of anything that they say. Now the meditations of my heart, now let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.